right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the last session of the conference. We're actually officially the very last session on the schedule. I was checking, and we're the last row. So that's great because I know that you're truly interested in staying, and you won't be disappointing. We have like a lot of very useful content and a lot of demos. So hopefully you will enjoy the session. So to start, I want to talk about where we're coming from for this session. So about a year ago, we released Office 2013 along with the corresponding updates in Office 365. And Office 2013 is a major milestone from a developer perspective. Why? Because that is the version of Office where we introduce what we call the new Cloud App model, which is probably the major revision to the extensibility for Office that we have done since we introduced BB8 20 years ago. So think about it. I mean, in the past, BB8 has been there. We then introduced add-ins. And now we're introducing a new extensibility model that allows you to extend Office in the cloud and devices. So we're enabling truly brand new ways to create solutions that are powered by Office, that work well in the cloud, on premises, and on devices too. So since last year, we continue to invest on this journey. I mean, this is a journey that's probably going to take us some time to complete the vision where we want to be. But just a month ago, we released another big milestone from a developer perspective. We released Office 2013 Service Pack 1. And that is also a very important milestone from a developer perspective because normally we don't release a lot of features on a Service Pack 1, but in this Service Pack 1, we actually added a lot of new capabilities in terms of enabling developers to extend Office. So we're going to spend some time on this session looking at all the new things and the existing things that we have for Office. So my name is Rolando Jimenez, and I'm a lead program manager on the Office Development Platform team. So my team owns Office extensibility all up, from BBA to COM add-ins to SharePoint to apps for Office and the new investments in the Cloud App model that we're presenting today. So I'd like to ask you, how many of you attended the session from Brian Jones on Wednesday for building connected productivity apps? Okay, almost half of the room. So in that session, Brian presented the broad vision that we have for this new app model for Office 365. And he used this slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this slide, but I do want to set the context of where we're coming from and what is the strategy. And there are two main ways in which we are investing to make Office relevant to developers in the new world of cloud and devices. The first one is we're investing in this API layer on top of all Office 365 services that allows developers to consume Office in their own endpoints. So if you have a device or an existing website, using these APIs, you can integrate Office and use Office as a service that powers your experiences. The second big way in which we are making Office relevant for developers is what we call contextual apps. So contextual apps, in some sense, is the reverse direction of the previous one. Instead of bringing Office to your endpoint, it is about bringing your custom services into Office. So think about it. Office has about 1 billion users out there. It's the most popular productivity suite in the world. And a lot of these users, especially information workers, spend a lot of time in Office. And Office is very rich in terms of providing features that are broadly applicable, but Office doesn't provide out of the box those long tail set of custom experiences that each individual needs to execute their work in their context. And that's what contextual apps are all about. And in the past, BBA and add-ins have played a role to enable developers, to enable custom functionality to be in context with the Office applications. And that's been mostly on the desktop, where the focus has been individual productivity. But with the new shift towards cloud and devices, as we saw in the keynotes, we needed to come up with a new way for enabling these contextual experiences. So there's a great opportunity to provide value to end users within Office and allow them to be more productive without leaving their Office context. Every context switch, we have learned that is very costly in terms of productivity. Users today use Excel, and they need information from their LOB systems, their CRM system, and they need to constantly be switching context, remembering passwords, et cetera. And that just is a burden from a productivity perspective. So there's a huge opportunity to enable contextual experiences. But Office has evolved. It's no longer just on the desktop. You have seen we now have Office on the iPad, on iOS. We have Office on Android. We have Office on the Mac. So we needed a new way to enable Office extensibility in a multi-platform way. And that is what apps for Office are all about. So today, I'm going to start with an apps for Office update to give an overview of where we are today, where we're coming from, and where we're going. We're going to spend most of the session looking at the new capabilities that we introduced with Service Pack 1, and what are the potential scenarios that you can enable today with the Service Pack 1 release. And then we're just going to wrap up with some takeaways and call to action. So in order to show you where we are today, I want to show a real-world application. So about a month ago, we announced a partnership with DocuSign. You probably saw some of the demos for DocuSign in the keynotes. So today I want to show you the work that DocuSign apps do in Office to bring high productivity digital signature scenarios on top of Office 365. So let's take a look at what the DocuSign folks have done. So for this scenario, I'm just going to play the role of an account manager on a marketing services company. So as an account manager, I interact with a lot of vendors that do media services, translation services, all sorts of services. So I need to be dealing with small vendors, big vendors, and of course, clients as well. So in this case, I'm in my inbox. I received this mail from Janice, which is one new small vendor that we just engaged with. And she is sending me a service quote that she needs me to sign in order to start the project with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, and some of you saw this demo in Brian's session. Brian showed this running on the Outlook web app. So one of the things I want you to notice here is I'm here in the Outlook desktop in the Rich client. I'm showing exactly the same app that Brian showed running on the web app. It's the same code base from a developer perspective. It's just one app, but it's also available here in my Outlook Rich client. Another interesting thing is that from an end user perspective, I didn't have, as an account manager, to install this app. This app was automatically surfaced for me by my IT manager in Outlook. And as you can see, there's a DocuSign entry point there. I'm going to click on that. And that's going to run the DocuSign app in the context of that email that has the service quote. So another thing to notice here is that I didn't need to sign in to a DocuSign account. Normally, if you have a DocuSign subscription, you will need to sign in with some credentials. So one of the things that DocuSign did here is they integrated a single sign-on, which is a new capability that we are supporting now with Office 365 through Azure AD, the ability for applications to be registered on the global Azure AD directory and do single sign-on for Office 365 users. So since I'm signed on in Outlook with my Office 365 account, I didn't need to sign in with DocuSign. Now here, this app shows automatically for every app that has, every mail that has attachments. I'm going to click Sign, and this is where productivity really shows up. I don't need to leave Outlook. I don't need to print, sign, and scan this document. I can do it everything that I need to do to sign this document right here without leaving my Outlook context. So I can come, review the numbers. Yeah, that seems like it is what we agreed. I just drag my signature, And that's all I need to do. I can click Finish. And then that document is going to be sent through a secure mechanism by DocuSign to my vendor. I also have the option to store this document in my OneDrive. So DocuSign also integrated this into OneDrive. So this is a great way to integrate with Outlook. Let me show you another example of how DocuSign is bringing high productivity digital signature scenarios on top of Office. So in this case, I'm still the account manager, but now I need to start a statement of work order. I want the vendor to sign it for me because that's the process that we have in my company. So my company has created a statement of work template that I can use to do that. And one of the things I want to notice is that as I open that template document, that template comes with an app included in it so that it facilitates the work. I don't need to go and find the app. It's already included in the template. So this is the statement of work template. I have one that it's already filled out, so let me open that one. So that one has the app too. So I need to send this out for signature. So what I can do here is just say I want a signature. I can select to save to OneDrive as well to keep track of all the signed documents. And then I can click to go to DocuSign to sign this document. And as you can imagine, this will bring me again the document that I was just authored here in Word. I didn't have to save it, go to DocuSign side, upload it. It's all in context with my DocuSign app. So here I can just say, yeah, let's put some tags in this document. This is where I want the vendor to sign. This is where I need their full name and title. And then I can send this document for signature. And that's it, that easy. In just a few seconds, I send that document without leaving my Word context. So for those of you that haven't seen existing Word apps as well, there's also some other things that apps can do for me. So for example, let's say that in this case, I needed to specify something for the project. In this case, I want QWERTY keyboards to be supported for some reason for my project. I can also bring other apps to help me author these documents. For example, we have this Wikipedia app now pre-installed with Office that you can click, and it automatically is going to search the selections for QWERTY keyboards. And I can see here, for example, there are some images. So I want to be very specific with this vendor about what we are talking about. I can come and insert an image into my Word document. So the app is helping me author my Word document in this case. Of course, I can make it look good. And then I could bring the DocuSign app and send it for signature again. But the point is that all these apps are inside Office and I'm bringing very tailored scenarios that enable me to be much more productive. The last one that I want to show you is DocuSign also integrated with SharePoint. So in this case, imagine that I'm working with this big client and we're working on this confidential project. I need to sign an NDA. And I've been collaborating with my legal department back and forth, of course, through SharePoint. So we published the document in a SharePoint document library, and we've been doing revisions. And we reached a point where the document is ready to be sent to the customer for signature. So I'm going to come here, and once again, another contextual experience that we enable through the new app model. I can select this document, which is my mutual NDA. And as you can see, there's another DocuSign entry point here. And as you can imagine, same thing, right? I can just select that document, click Send here. And again, without leaving the context in which I work, I can just, in a few clicks, send that document for signature to my client. It's taking a little bit of time, but you get the idea. This will eventually bring the DocuSign signing console, and I'll be able to sign and send these documents. So I will just close these. So just to recap, what did we see and where we are today? Apps for Office are the way in which we are enabling these contextual experiences to be available in the broad of Office 365. So you can integrate with Outlook, with Word, with PowerPoint, with Excel, and have all these high productivity custom experiences to your end users that integrate across desktop and online clients. And in the future, you will see us investing in the new platform. So the vision for this is that everywhere Office runs, these apps will be able to provide these custom experiences. We also saw how it is easy to seamlessly integrate third-party services and also other Office 365 services like OneDrive with your custom solutions. In this case, DocuSign is bringing the digital signature service, but it's also leveraging OneDrive to store the documents and provide the company with a single repository of all signed documents in my corporation. We also saw the Better Together story with Azure. In this case, we saw the single sign-on powered by Azure. Azure can also provide a hosting environment where you can run all your code. So the code for all these apps actually runs in the cloud, and it's just projected as a contextual experience inside the clients or inside Office 365. And then we also saw the streamlined enterprise deployment and lifecycle. There is great tools for IT departments to deploy and roll out these apps without having to manage and install on the actual clients. They just deploy to a central corporate app catalog, and these apps light up automatically for end users. Here it is. So, as I said, Service Pack 1 for Office 2013 is one of the big milestones that we just released a month ago. And we added a lot of new capabilities for developers in Service Pack 1. We added the ability to extend mail and calendar items when you are composing them. This is new. Before, in 2013, we only had the ability to extend the read experience. Now you can extend the composition experience as well. We added the ability to extend PowerPoint with content apps. We added content apps in Access. So for the new Access clients, you can also integrate these apps for Office to enable contextual experiences right within Access. We added a bunch of new APIs in Excel, also in Word. We made enhancements in the UX and the store. So for example, in the case of Outlook, we enabled paid apps, which was not possible before. So this is just to give you a sense that we continue to invest on the platform, and we will continue to add these investments. And of course, we'll see a lot of corresponding tooling enhancements in Visual Studio. So if you're curious, Service Pack 1 is now publicly available for MSI clients that have a perpetual license. It can be downloaded today from Microsoft Download Center. Office 365 subscriber that using our click-to-run streaming technology will automatically get the update in the next few weeks. And this is the build number just for your reference in case you want to check if you already got the Service Pack 1. And there are a couple of links there in case you want to know more about how to get Service Pack 1. So let's jump into the details of what are the new capabilities that we are adding. So I'm going to start with PowerPoint because this is a brand new way in which we're enabling PowerPoint extensions. And for this demo, I'm going to need your help. So we introduced the ability to extend PowerPoint with content that is basically an app that you create for PowerPoint. And in this case, I have this slide where I want to ask you a question. I want to know how familiar you are with apps for Office. And I'd like you to help me answer this question, whether you're learning, you're developing, or you have already completed a project or released. So for this, I want to use an app. Some of you already saw this demo also on Brian's session, but let me show you here again. This is an application that is available today in the store. It's created by Poll Everywhere. So Poll Everywhere offers online live polling services on the web. So these guys created this app in about 3 weeks time frame and allows me to do things like this. I'm going to do a multiple choice right within my authoring experience. I'm going to say 3 choices, and I'm going to create a new poll. So this is connecting to the live service. And now I have a live poll in my deck that I can run in slideshow mode. So I'm going to ask you, if you have a mobile browser or a browser available, you can go to pollev.com right now /RolandoJ and answer this poll. Or if you have your cell phone and prefer to do text, you can text to the number 22333 the corresponding code to the option that you want. So we'll see where we are in this audience in terms of familiarity with apps for Office. So while you respond, you can see how this is actually a really cool scenario, right? We are seeing a live service that I just integrated in a matter of seconds with my PowerPoint presentation. It just took me a few clicks to do this. And then we can see how in this case, a lot of you are learning, some developing, and a very few have already shipped some apps for Office already, which is great to see. Now, one of the things I want to show you is we have said that these apps work symmetrically in the desktop and the online client. So while you guys continue to respond to the poll, I want to save this PowerPoint presentation. And this is going to my SharePoint site where I have these. And I'm going to open that same presentation in my web client. So here it is. I just updated a few seconds ago. I'm going to open that same presentation in PowerPoint Online. And I'm going to navigate to that slide where I inserted the poll. So there it is. So it's going to reload the app. And as you can see, it picks up the same app that I inserted on the desktop client. It's now available on the web client. And it just picked up the same live poll where we left. So obviously, majority of you are learning about these technologies, which is great to see. That's what this session is about. So just to recap, what did we see on that demo? We saw the new capability to extend PowerPoint with very cool service integration. You can do all sorts of contents. You can do videos. You can do live services. You can imagine in the enterprise scenarios where you have connectivity to your live LOV system, and you can show PowerPoint, in PowerPoint your reports directly with live data without having to update the PowerPoint presentation every time. We didn't see these, but we also have some APIs that allow you to do navigation across slide, inherit the theming, and also do some file handling at the PowerPoint level. Visual Studio, of course, also comes with new project templates that allows you to create these types of apps. So we're trying to make it really easy. Let's jump to Outlook. So this is a Power Hour. We're going to do like a series of demos to try to show you the breadth of all the investments that we are doing. So I'm going to close here. And I want to start now showing you the development experience for this app. And what are the new things that we added to Visual Studio. So I'm going to start with a new project here. I'm going to create a new app for Office. So as you would expect, there's project templates for these. Just leave the default name there. I'm going to, in this case, select a mail app. So, and new with Service Pack 1 is the ability to create these compose form apps that will allow you to extend the editing experience of mail and calendar. So in this case, I'm going to create an app that extends both read and compose, both for mail and appointments. And just click Finish and let Visual Studio create the project structure for me. So as we said, apps for Office are created using web technologies. So when we look at the structure of this project, it's basically a web project that has a bunch of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS files. In this case, there's a folder for my Compose experience and my read experience here. So let's see what we got out of the box just with default project in Visual Studio. So I'm just going to click Start here. And another nice thing is that I don't even need to have a full development environment with Office in my machine. I can actually use my Office 365 account, which I'm going to do here. So in this case, I need to put just the credentials of my Office 365. So I'm going to tell Visual Studio, please use this Exchange server on the cloud, on that domain, to debug this application. So Visual Studio is going to automatically compile the project, upload it to the cloud, and then open a browsing session in my own inbox. So in this case, you can see this is, again, my inbox. And you immediately can see that here's my app, Office App 1 in read mode. In this case, it's just doing a very simple, it's just like reading the subject and from. I want to show you also how if I go and create a new email, I have the ability to have an app extending my email experience here. So here's my app 1 again. And in this case, Visual Studio provides some sample code to set the subject, get the subject, modify the recipients. I can add myself. So let's see how we can make this app a little bit more interesting. So one of the nice things about Visual Studio is that it allows me to do very frequent updates with live debugging on my app. So I'm going to leave this project running, and I'm going to extend this app to enable a scenario that I will always cared about. Very often I invite people to Microsoft Campus, and there's a lot of buildings, and I need to provide them with the address. So normally I need to go and fetch the address from the Microsoft intranet, and I will spend some time doing that. So I wanted to create a simple app that allows me to very easily and quickly get the building addresses into my appointments. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to extend the HTML. This is the main HTML of my Compose app. So I'm going to add a couple of lines just to include jQuery UI. So this is another nice capability of Apps for Office. You can use any third-party JavaScript libraries that you want. In this case, I'm going to use jQuery UI to provide my UI. And I'm going to replace here the default content that Visual Studio provided me with just a simple div that I'm going to use to provide a list of buildings. Now, I only need to add some JavaScript code to enable these buildings to show up. So in this case, I'm going to create some global definitions, a couple of variables, an array to hold my buildings, and a service URI. I have a service in Azure that gives me the list of buildings in Microsoft. I'm going to provide a function to load the buildings, and I'm going to provide a function to insert the buildings into my appointment. There it is. So, and then all I need to do is code that load buildings function in my init method. And as you can see, this load buildings function is simple. It's just going to do a JSON request for this service, which provides the buildings list in a JSON format. You can see I'm doing a cross-domain call here. So how is that possible? So I'm using just standard browser capabilities like CORS to be able to make a cross-domain call from my client to the server. And because this is built on the web, you can use all these open standards that the web allows you to use. So in this case, I configured my server to allow cross-domain calls, so the call will be enabled. So I'm just going to save. My app is still running here, but I'm going to come here and refresh it. Maybe I didn't save all. Continue. Let me see. let's see, it seems there's, oh, I may have saved just one file. Sorry about that. So let me save all files and then refresh. There it is. So now I loaded jQuery. I'm using a jQuery accordion. I loaded the buildings, putting them in the div that I put my HTML. I'm loading an image for the building also from the service. And now what I can do is I can also click Insert here and then get that building information as HTML into the body of my email. So very easy way to enable, and again, another high productivity scenario. So you can imagine this can be very powerful if you want to enable a sales scenario where you want to provide product information from your LOB system. You can allow salespeople to really easily fetch product information while authoring an email and put it there. Or legal, you can have legal documents also come and attach them automatically to your emails or appointments. So, I mean, this is just a glimpse of the possibilities, but I think you get the point of what is possible. So just to recap, Compose Apps in Email is a new capability that we released with Service Pack 1. There is also a new APIs to enable you to handle attachments, so you can read and write attachments as well. This is what DocuSign is doing. We also added support for paid apps, which was something that we were missing in the initial release of 2013. And let's switch now to Excel. See how we're doing on time, 19. Okay, great. So let me show you what are we doing in Excel. So in Excel, you probably saw that we already had some apps for Office. We added the ability to have what we call pre-pinned or pre-installed apps for Office that come out of the box with Excel. In this case, we have a couple of apps like Bing Maps and People Graph that allow you to map data very easily through a new content app that is available with the latest version of Excel. Now, what I want to show you is some of the new capabilities that we added for SP1. So in this case, let's say I'm doing some analysis about sales in some of the states, and I have a table in Excel with some of the sales figures. I want to do some projections about how am I going to be able to increase those sales. So I would like to match this information with some research data that I want to do on the web about, like, what is my target audience. So for this, I know that there is very nice service called Wolfram Alpha that allows me to fetch a lot of very useful information throughout the web. And I can use natural language queries here. Like, for example, I can do what is the children population of a particular state, let's say California. Oh. And Wolfram Alpha will go in, let me fix that. So Wolfram Alpha is this intelligent service that allows me to put complex natural language queries, and then we'll resolve that from information from the web. So this is an amazing service that it's already there, right? I can put any expression that I want, and Wolfram Alpha will give me something useful. But I like to have this for my data in Excel. And if I had a long list of information that I wanted to match, it would be like pretty cumbersome to go back and forth and copy paste all these queries because I need to do them one by one. So I created this simple app for Office that allows me to be much more productive. In this case, I call it Magic Fill. So Magic Fill is a very simple app. This is just an internal test app that we created. Allows me to select a table in my Excel file, in this case, this table with states. I'm going to add a new column to that table called Target Audience. And let's say I want to know what is the, not the GDP, but the young adult population. And again, this is going to be resolved by Wolfram Alpha. I didn't need to code all this in my app. I'm just tapping on the power of the Wolfram Alpha service. I'm going to select which column has the pivot that changes, right? So I'm going to say, yeah, young adult population of the state column, and I'm going to add that column. So this app is going to go out to the service and query Wolfram Alpha for me and get all that information and then put it into Excel. So again, in just a couple of clicks, I did the work that would have taken me a lot of time going to do this research on the web and bring it to Excel, right? So you can see how powerful these scenarios can be in Excel. So this is something that you can do today. You can do this from RTM. Now you can see the format is not great on this table. One of the new APIs that we added with Service Pack 1 is an API that allows you to precisely control the formatting of the content that you're inserting. So let me show you another fun app that we have that our test team created, which is executing the new formatting APIs that allow you to control how the data looks inside Excel. So in this case, we created a clone of the ribbon. Of course, we don't expect you guys to do this type of apps, but this is just to demonstrate all the power that you have through the new APIs. So in this case, I'm going to select this table. I can show you the code that you would need to write. It's actually very simple. It's just a simple JavaScript API calls that you would do from within your app to change the design of the table that you're inserting. So you can control the table style, whether you want header rows or not, whether you want filter button or not. So you can imagine you get all the power. Also from a formatting perspective, you have granular control over specific cells. So I can change the background color and the foreground color, the formatting of particular cells. I can change these to percentage, number, etc. So you get the idea. So now you can use this new API to control how data looks in Excel. So really powerful stuff. So what did we see? We saw the new formatting APIs. We also saw an example of a very powerful pattern, which is connect to a service. That service could be a public service on the web, or could be an internal service that exposes your LOB data. It doesn't matter. The sweet spot for apps in Excel is you can connect to all this data that it's outside, bringing to Excel, or you can publish data from Excel into your services. So you'll see that the sweet spot for apps for Office is when you are integrating Office with the rest of the world. So we also saw improved table binding capabilities where I just need to click on one cell and I can bind to entire table. A binding is the mechanism in which apps basically can read and write to elements on a document or an Excel spreadsheet. We also have some new things that allow you to do bind-on insertion. That's a feature that was highly requested by people creating data visualizations, that when you insert the app, you automatically can bind to the existing selection. That's something we didn't have. So we're listening to what developers are asking for and trying to add those capabilities into the platform. I didn't show this, but we also added the capability in Visual Studio to debug Excel Online. So this is something that developers requested as well. I'm developing my app, and I want to make sure that I can debug in the online client. So now it is possible to do that with Service Pack 1 and Visual Studio. So now let me show you a very interesting example that is going to show some of the new Word capabilities and also like the power of the development tools that we have in Visual Studio. So let's create a Word app now. Let me close this one. And let me close this project. Okay, so I'm going to open Visual Studio again. And in this case, I'm going to open an existing web application. In this case, I'm opening this Office 365 sample, which is actually a sample that we published as a public sample. You can access it on the web. And it basically demonstrates how to use the new Office 365 platform APIs to authenticate and authorize access to OneDrive, to Exchange, and use Active Directory for single sign-on. So I just took that sample app that has nothing right now related to contextual experiences and apps for Office, but it's a working web project. So let me show you how it looks like out of the box. So in this case, it's just a web application. You can see I'm running it in my local host. And it is built on ASP.NET MVC4. So it's using all the nice tooling and patterns from MVC4 applications. And it allows me to, I can click here on Active Directory, and I can get information about the currently logged on user. So again, this is using the Azure AD single sign-on. I can also query Exchange. So I have a security token now because I'm signed in with my Office 365 account. I can query my calendar information. For example, I can see the events that are in my calendar. I can also see my email. This is all using the Office 365 service APIs that we exposed. I can also connect to SharePoint. In this case, I can see the contents of my OneDrive. So I have like 4 documents in my OneDrive with this app. Now, I want to show you a very cool capability of Visual Studio. You can take any standard web project in Visual Studio and convert it to an app for Office, or extend it to an app for Office. Actually, extend is a better metaphor. In this case, the command option is convert, but what I'm going to do is take this project, and I would like to reuse all that code that I already did that connects to Exchange, OneDrive. I don't want to rewrite all that from scratch for my app for Office, but I want to create an app for Office that takes advantage of all that code. So I'm going to say convert that project to an app for Office. I'm going to say, in this case, I want to create a task pane for Word. So I'm going to select Word only. I could have left the options, but in this case, it's a very specific Word scenario that I want to enable. And while this happens, let me show you what this scenario is going to be about. So let me open. So this scenario is going to be about these annual report reviews. So there's every year we need to create a report, and this report needs to be reviewed by many people, and also eventually needs to be published as a PDF to a particular file. So I want to create an app for Office that allows me to establish which sections of the document need to be reviewed by which people. And then when the document is ready, I want to publish it to my OneDrive for my company so that everybody can see the latest version. So let's see how we can do that with an app for Office. So for now, Visual Studio completed converting the project, and actually it's not really a conversion. What really happened is, you can see the original project is still there. Nothing major really happened to that, other than a few JavaScript libraries were added to enable the integration with the Office JavaScript API. And a new node was created. This is the node that contains the app for Office. And as you can see, it's a very simple node right now. All it has is a simple XML manifest file. So let's open that manifest file. And this is the manifest file that describes how the web project is going to integrate into Office. As you can see, there's like typical information like ID, version, etc. And there is this URL that allows me to specify where the app for Office is going to be loaded from. In this case, it's using this placeholder that Visual Studios are going to automatically replace with the default location for my web project. So one of the things that I have to do in this case, because I'm using Office 365 authentication, from a security perspective, apps for Office are isolated based on domains. So in this case, since I need to authenticate with a third-party provider, which is Windows login, I'm going to add those 2 domains as trusted domains of my apps so that the app considers those domains as part of the app and let them participate in the app flows. So I'm going to extend the manifest with that. And I'm also going to use that document. I'm going to add to this project the document that I want to extend. So I'm going to grab that annual report document and add it to my project. And what I can do is I can now configure my Visual Studio project to use that document for debugging. So I just did 3 simple steps. I enabled my app to use other domains, including the Azure authentication domains, added a project, and extended the manifest. Let's see where we are at. So if I run this project again, it's going to now launch that document that I added to my project. Now I can insert this Office 365 sample app that Visual Studio just created for me. And of course, right now, it is going to render the default page. So the same page that we saw before on the browser, it's that page. So that page, fortunately, was designed to be responsive. So if I resize it to the size of this task pane, it looks good. And that is nothing specific to Apps for Office. That's just proper web design to adapt. And then I can see how I have my menu here. So everything seems to be working. But it's not interacting with the document yet. So let's take care of that. Let me close this. And let's extend this app to actually be able to start using the Office JavaScript APIs that we have in Word and be able to do something interesting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I already have in my MVC project this SharePoint sample controller that knows how to render the UI. And here's the function that renders the main page, right? That's going to use MVC to create a new view and render that homepage UI that we saw in SharePoint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new view to this project for my app for Office. So I'm just adding to the project, but I'm going to reuse all the existing code that knows how to authenticate with OneDrive, with Office 365, etc. So I'm going to add a new view, a new method for a new view in my controller. I'm going to come here and actually add that new view. I'm going to call it App for Office and just say add. So Visual Studio is going to add a new HTML file that is going to have the view for my App for Office. Let's replace this HTML and add some real HTML. So in this case, you can see some of the important things that I'm adding is I'm adding the Apps for Office Office JavaScript API. This is the key that allows me to interact with the Office document. By doing this include, I will be able to interact with the document. I'm adding some HTML elements to capture the reviews. I have a list of pending reviews. And then I have some little form in HTML that will allow me to post the file to my server when the file is done. So that is my HTML interface. Now, of course, I need some JavaScript behind this. So let's add a JavaScript file to support the functionality that I need. So I'm going to add a new JavaScript file to my project. I'm going to call this App for Office. So this created app4office.js, and as you can see, I already had the reference for that file here in my HTML, so I'm just going to fill in the code that I need. So in this case, let's do some initialization code first. I'm going to have an array that is going to hold a list of reviews. In this case, each review is what we call a binding, which is a particular section of the document that will need review. So I'm doing binding with the review. Then I'm going to also create some code for handling the bindings of those sections. So in here, I want to show you that I'm going to be using the Office OM available to me via that JavaScript file. So I'm using a document object here that is using a settings API that allows me to store the reviews as part of the document. So whenever a new review is needed, that information will be stored in the document. That's what this API does. I have a show navigation, which is basically allow me to see all the list of reviews and navigate to them. This is the function create nav binding, the one that creates a new review. So we have this API that allows you to establish bindings with a document. A binding is basically a handle, if you will, to a section of a document. So anything that can be selected in the document, you can bind to. So this is going to add a binding from the selection of whatever the user selects, and then store it into the list of reviews that need to be handled. And then it's going to render the list of all the reviews that have been created, and then store that into the document. And lastly, I'm using this new navigation API, which allows me to navigate to different parts of the documents. In this case, I'm going to navigate to the different bindings that I created as reviews by using this simple go-to by ID async. So each of these bindings that represents a review has a unique ID that is assigned to it, and with this function, I'm going to navigate to that binding. So with this, I should have enough functionality now to see my app doing the reviews. So let's see how it looks like. So now I launch this app, but it's still showing the main interface. And actually, I forgot to add the entry point to the new view that I created, so there's no way to navigate to that right now. So let me go ahead and go back to Visual Studio and add that simple entry point in the menu so that I can actually go to that new view that I created. And that is going to be in this shared layout HTML file. You can see here's a list of items that are the items that represent that menu that you saw in the HTML. So I'm going to add a new item there that is going to launch the view for my app for Office, and this is the controller that handles that view. So with that, I'm going to save. I'm going to come back here and reload my app. And I should see that new menu item here. Here it is, App for Office, that is basically going to link to the new view that I just created. So let's click it. And this is going to render the HTML that we just added. So as you can see, it's a very simple HTML with a text box and a button to create the reviews. So let's see how that works. Let's say I want to review this section and I want to add a comment, review these. I'm going to click Mark for Review. You can see how there's this bounding box that got created. That is the binding. So basically, whatever I select is going to be bound to my app. So now my app has knowledge of that section in the document. So as I go through the document and find different places where I want to review, let's say, review numbers on this section. And let's see, at the end, I want to update the accounts. And I want to mark for review. So I have 3 review items. And with the new navigation API, I can also allow my users to open this document. The app can be part of the document as well and allow the users to navigate. So as I click on these reviews, I'm using that go-to by ID async, which allows me to navigate to those binding elements. And as you can see, it highlights with a bounding box what is the element that I need to review. So this will allow me to instruct people what sections need to be revised. Now let's take a look at how can we save this document to my OneDrive when it is done. So let's close this, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to integrate the existing functionality that I have in my web app that already talks to OneDrive. You saw the UI we had for showing the list of documents in my OneDrive. So we're going to reuse that UI. We're just going to add a function that allows me to upload the current document as a PDF to OneDrive and then reuse the existing page that I have that already shows the contents of my OneDrive. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come again to my SharePoint controller here. And I'm going to add a new action that is going to receive the PDF file and post it to my OneDrive. So this task is called Publish PDF. It takes a file stream, a stream of bytes that is going to be submitted by my HTML interface obtained from the Word document, put it into my app, and then this app is going to connect to OneDrive and submit the app and store it there. And this is all using, again, the Office 365 APIs that are leveraging the Azure AD authentication that I integrated with this app from the very beginning. And then, of course, I need to go and update my JavaScript file on the client side so that my UI allows me to publish that. So that is here in my app for Office. So let me add this couple of functions. So I added a variable to contain the byte stream of data that represents the document. And there is this function, getPDF ready for submit, which is going to make a call, again, on the Office JavaScript API. It's a very simple call that allows me to get the file, basically the binary representation of the file. And this call allows you to get either as a PDF format, as an OpenXML format, or as text. So you can retrieve it using this enumeration here. And you can see the different options that oh, my IntelliSense is broken. But you have a couple of different options. You have PDF, you have OpenXML, and you have text as a ways to extract the file. And then, because we may have to deal with very large files, we're going to do this in an async way. So I have this utility function that allows me to process the file in chunks. So instead of having one single call that pegs the processor 100%, reading a big file, I'm going to do it on the background using async call. But as you can see, I mean, it's just a few lines of calls, a few lines of code that are going to process the file in slices. So that's all I need to do. Let's run this again and then see if it's working. So here's my app again. I'm going to go to my app for Office. And in this case, let's say the document is ready to be published. I just need to assign a name. So, and I'm going to hit publish. So this is going to call, again, my function, and it's going to redirect to my existing page that I already had as part of the app. And you can see how the new file is showing up there. This is in my OneDrive. Actually, I can click on it, and you can see in the URL, this is actually hosted in my personal OneDrive, so it's accessing that OneDrive location, and here's the PDF representation of that document. So once again, a great way to create apps for Office without having to start from scratch. We were able to reuse a lot of existing code, and I created a very useful app in this case that allows me to do reviews and publish them to my Office 365 account without the need to do everything from zero. So what did we see? We saw a few new APIs that we just added in Service Pack 1 for Word for file handling and navigation. We also added some improved support for co-authoring. So when two users are co-authoring a document, we also have some better handling of how apps behave in those scenarios. We didn't show that, but it's part of the Service Pack 1. We also saw how easy it is to reuse an existing app for Office project and use that functionality to create new apps for Office. And we saw the integration with Office 365, specifically with OneDrive. Now, I'm just going to talk very briefly just to wrap up. We also enable apps for Office to participate in Access apps. So I want to show you just very quickly how those apps look like in Access. So Access, as you have seen probably, has evolved to be now an application that allows you to create apps on the web. In this case, I have a very simple data-driven app. It's a database of students created entirely by Access that allows me to see the students. Now, what I want to show you is that this thing here, this graph here, it's an app for Office that I created in Visual Studio, very similar to how we created the one for Outlook and the one for Word. This is an app for Office created in Visual Studio that is bound to the data in the database. And using the exact same technology, you can also extend these apps for access. And if you come here, the way users acquire these apps is very similar to how they do it in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. There's this ability to find apps and insert apps in Access applications when you're authoring the Access app. So this session is normally 75 minutes, so I won't be able to do that demo, but I wanted to show you like what is possible in Access. But if you're interested, I can definitely send you pointers offline about how to learn more about what is possible with Apps for Office in Access. And just to finish, there's also a set of enhancements that we did across the store and the UI to make apps behave better, have better entry points, and have better compatibility with other versions of Office. So that's pretty much all the content. I just want to wrap up with key takeaways that I'd like you to leave today with. The first one is Apps for Office is the way in which we are driving these contextual experiences to be created by developers to extend all Office clients. Today, we enable Apps for Office in the desktop and in the online clients. But again, the roadmap and the vision is that these Apps for Office will eventually work everywhere Office works. We saw how SP1 bring improvements in terms of the capabilities that you will have in Apps for Office. So very recommended, go out and get the latest version of the Service Pack 1 and any updates on top of that. We saw how it is really easy and valuable to integrate solutions that not only talk to Office, like in the old days of VBA and the add-ins where you are mostly automating one app. But there is really a much bigger power in connecting to services like Wolfram Alpha or your own internal services that bring that power into the context of Office and that also connect Office with other users and other applications and other services. And the last point I want to make is you saw all your existing investments in existing web apps or applications can be leveraged to create apps for Office. You don't need to start from scratch. In fact, that Poll Everywhere app that we saw was possible to be published in just 3 weeks from zero to the store because Poll Everywhere had already a bunch of assets, like 80–90% of the app they already had because they already had a web interface that targets their web clients, their mobile clients. All they need to do is add that extra layer that integrates into Office. So it was very easy for them to leverage their existing investments on web technologies to create this app for Office. So with that, I will wrap up. Thank you very much for your time today. And it's the last session, so you are free now to go back to your original destinations. And thanks a lot. So please provide feedback if you like the session.